We begin our primary coverage with results in the first ever election for Colorado's brand new Congressional District 8. Barb Kirkmeyer will be facing off against State Representative Yadira Caraveo for Congressional District 8. Kirkmeyer with 40% of the vote, and second Thornton Mayor Jan Kuhlman. This is the state's newest congressional district and is the most diverse district that covers Adams and Weld County. 40% of voters in this new district are Hispanic.
Okay, and we will continue our team coverage. Darius Johnson live at the governor's mansion. He is tracking that race.
And first, John Glasgow live in our newsroom this morning. John, we've learned that Joe O'Dea will face Democratic Senator Michael Bennet in November.
Yeah, Joe O'Dea defeated State Representative Ron Hanks in the Republican U.S. Senate primary. Hanks is outspoken 2020 election denier. O'Dea in green here, he won the metro area and the larger populated counties, while Hanks won rural Colorado. Democrats spent $4 million on ads promoting O'Dea's opponent Hanks, hoping that he'd be an easier candidate for Bennet to beat in November. At 6:30, we're going to hear from O'Dea's response to that Democratic funding strategy, and it wasn't a very good one. Long story short, Republican voters picked O'Dea, the more moderate opponent, over Bennet. Corey, we learned that Colorado Republicans are moving away from the far-right candidates here, as we saw in this election. Darius Johnson, he's also live at the governor's mansion, and he's going to have a look at who's going to face Governor Polis in the November election. Darius?
Yeah, John, Republican Heidi Ganahl will challenge the incumbent governor, Democrat Jared Polis, in November in the general election. Now, she says her work begins today, this morning, in hopes of winning in November. Now, Ganahl is the last Republican to win statewide office in Colorado back in 2016 when she won a seat on the CU Board of Regents. Ganahl says as she moves forward to face the governor, her focus remains on fixing schools when it comes to education and mental health. Another thing she wants to address is crime, specifically cracking down on illegal fentanyl use. She added she believes the new fentanyl accountability bill signed into law just last month makes it harder for law enforcement to address the bigger problem. The question is whether Ganahl could actually get anything done as governor, since Democrats have majority of the legislature.
I believe we have a chance to take back both sides of the legislature and the Attorney General's office and Secretary of State's office and the Treasurer's office. I think it's going to be a big year for Republicans in Colorado, as evidenced by tonight. And I truly believe that we have the best ideas to take us back.
Once again, 9 News asked Ganahl for the second time her thoughts on the 2020 election and if there was fraud. Gary, of course, once again, she kind of steered away from that question. Instead, she's saying that she would like to move forward.
Yeah, she's been kind of playing both sides of the question on that one. All right, thank you very much. And for the Secretary of State in Colorado, Republican Pam Anderson is going to face the Democratic incumbent Jenna Griswold in November. Anderson won the primary over Mike O'Donnell, and in third, Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters. Now, Peters, as you know, facing felony charges. She's accused of tampering with her county's election equipment. She's not even allowed to run Mesa County's elections this year. No surprise, the Peters campaign is claiming without any evidence that there was fraudulent in the election yesterday. Pam Anderson rejects election rigging conspiracies amplified by Peters and is vocal about our election system being secure. Anderson is a former Jefferson County clerk. She previously led the County Clerks Association.
We can trust our elections in Colorado, but our work is never done, and we're not going to use hyperpartisan rhetoric to inflate anyone's political profile. This is about Colorado and the voters and restoring trust.
The race for State House District 6 is really tight for the Democrats. We're talking fractions of a percent. Right now, Katie March leads by about 30 votes over Elizabeth Epps. According to state law, an automatic recount will happen if the difference between the number of candidates' votes is less than or equal to 0.5%. Whoever wins this primary race will face Donald Howell in November. Republican Representative Lauren Boebert took a big step toward a second term last night. She easily beat her primary challenger in Colorado's 3rd district.
Results for Douglas County Sheriff show a longtime veteran with the department is leading. Darren Weekly is the office's current captain of investigations. He currently holds 34% of the vote. John Anderson is the retired commander of Castle Rock Police. He's trailing Weekly by about 1,000 votes.
It is close there. A reminder, if election results change between tonight and next week, it's not because late cast ballots are being counted.
Yeah, it is because votes that were turned in had some issues, and those issues needed to be fixed.
Let's say you forgot to sign your ballot envelope, or maybe your signature doesn't quite match your past ones. Your envelope won't be open. They'll leave the ballot alone. You'll get a letter in the mail asking you to cure your ballot. You can find all the results from this year's primary at 9news.com. We also have an interactive map where you can geek out on all the big races. You can text the word election to the number on your screen. It's 303-871-1491, and we will send you a link.
All right, sounds good. 6:06 right now. Other news this morning, according to the Pew Research Center, about 5% of U.S. adults under 30 identify as trans or non-binary. And lawmakers in some states are taking actions to restrict access to gender-affirming health care.
Now one telehealth company is trying to provide greater health care access for people transitioning. CNBC's Bertha Coombs reports.
Oh, hey, baby. For Piper Rose, gender transition has been a process. The hardest part, finding a doctor.
If I call and I say, I want an LGBTQ plus competent doctor, they can't even sort the doctor's list based on that.
Now, Rose works for Plume, a 3-year-old telehealth startup for adult transgender patients. Co-founder Jerica Kirkley saw virtual care as a game changer.
Upwards of a third of trans individuals are actually discriminated against or harassed in a healthcare facility. Telehealth as a means to access healthcare for the trans community is not just a convenience and a nice to have, it actually can be a necessity for many folks.
Plume provides access to a doctor and testing for adults and a trans-led support team for $99 a month. It isn't covered by insurance, and hormone medication is extra. Now in 41 states, the service is growing, but so are legal challenges to gender-affirming care. More than a dozen states have moved to restrict transgender care for youth. While attorneys say the right to adult care should be upheld, the Supreme Court ruling overturning federal abortion rights could prompt new challenges.
While we expect the cases to continue to come up, and perhaps Dobbs will generate additional litigation, they will be judged really on a case-by-case basis and a right-by-right basis.
For Piper Rose, on the road to their transition, it's disheartening.
There's like a level of terror to having policy that's against you, and then there's a level of terror that makes it feel like you literally cannot exist.
Beyond medical access, paying for trans care can be a hurdle for many. Plume hopes to move into the employer market with more large companies covering gender-affirming care. But in the individual market, only half of U.S. states require private insurance plans to include coverage, while Arkansas, Texas, and 8 other state Medicaid plans explicitly exclude trans care. Now back to you.
Here in Colorado, the State Division of Insurance has a full resource page to explain health care rights specifically for the LGBTQ plus community. You could also find a link to file a complaint if you feel that you've been discriminated against. Just head to doi.colorado.gov.
All right, well, another hot afternoon in store with those temperatures back in the mid-90s today. We're already seeing that sun shining over downtown Denver. Temperatures already at 70 degrees at 6:09 this morning. We have winds coming in from the southwest at around 16 miles per hour. They're going to stay anywhere between 10 to 20 miles per hour through the rest of the afternoon. Our HG Doppler radar still pretty empty. As we go through the afternoon and evening hours, we do have a very slight chance for a brief spotty shower later today. Maybe an isolated storm pops up, but mostly staying dry and sunny here in Denver. Those highs near 95 degrees, a bit breezy out there. Overnight, everything clears on out, those lows dropping into the lower 60s, and then cooler weather moves in tomorrow through Friday. We'll see those temperatures maxing out in the 80s. We'll also see increased chances for those afternoon and evening storms, but the good news is they're not expected to push through tomorrow until after the Avs parade. Everything should be nice, mild, dry, maybe a little cloudy tomorrow morning for that parade. I'll have more details on that, plus your full 4th of July forecast just ahead.